Everybody, I read every book. I tracked the data. I made the informed choices. And then my baby came out and I had no idea what to do with myself. So today I'm sitting down with the person who wrote some of those books, the Emily Oster. I am a fan, and I want to see if she has any answers for that part, the mom part. She has written Expecting Better, Crib Sheet, most recently The Unexpected. And she says the data does not support most of what we guilt mothers about. So let's get into it. Emily, hi, how are you?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm good.
I am pumped. My first question is, what is it like being Emily Oster on the internet?
It's a mixed bag. I would say broadly, I feel very lucky that I get to talk to people and I get to, hear what they have to say. And on Instagram, people ask me a ton of questions, and it's really interesting to hear what they're worried about. And sometimes it's very nice to get to relax them.
Yeah,
And then sometimes people yell at me, and then that makes me sad.
I understand. I have been on the receiving end of much yelling
Yes.
in my life, but I honestly think at this point anybody that's on the internet is on the receiving end of the yelling. You just can't help it. You cannot please every human on the
No.
earth, and like
And
it's just how it goes.
I think that the key to being a person on the internet, if you're going to choose to do that, and is to just accept that some people will yell at you and that you don't necessarily have to take all of that criticism into yourself. You can just kind of let it go.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I want to dig into the questions, and I just put on my Instagram story that I was about to interview you, and I have been flooded with questions in like 5 minutes.
People
So
have
I
a lot of
think
questions.
people are gonna be really excited for this episode. The first question is my personal question for you, and it's something that I have been thinking about a lot, like separate from this interview, but as I heard that we were going to be able to do this episode, it really clicked for me. And it's like when something is personal enough or emotional enough or scary enough, the data just doesn't land. Like a mom who is terrified of formula isn't going to be talked out of like that fear by a study. And so, one of my questions for you is when somebody has already made up their mind with their heart, is information like actually the answer? And what do you even say to that person?
It's a really thoughtful question. So let me say two things. So first, I think data almost never gives us the answers to our questions. Particularly around spaces that we care a lot about. So take something like breastfeeding. I want people to know what the best evidence says about breastfeeding and what the benefits are and what are the things that are overstated. But the decision to breastfeed is actually not only about what the data says, it is also about constraints that you face, things that are complicated, whether you can do this, and also about how you feel about it, right? So when I had my first kid, I knew all of the data on breastfeeding. I knew that a lot of the benefits were overstated, but it was really important to me. Like, I really wanted to do this. It was an experience that I really wanted to have. And, people will say, like, well, that's your gut. Like, your gut is talking. You should think about your gut instead of the data. But my feeling is we should combine our preferences, the things that matter to us with the data. So the data is like one input to
Mhm.
decisions, but it isn't the only input. And we have to accept like we're always going to be balancing both of those things. But that's different than saying you shouldn't care about the data. You should care about it. You should just accept it's not always the answer.
Yeah, I think that's actually really thoughtful. I think that some people, when it comes to certain matters in parenting, they just like live by extremes, and I have to imagine that a lot of those voices are extreme voices. But there are a lot of people in the middle that are like, well, like, I don't know. And like, I was sort of one of those I don't know people on certain things, but then on other things, I knew out of the gate the decisions that we wanted to make. And it's really interesting because I feel like you get a lot of shit for like the formula versus breastfeeding thing.
Yeah.
And you yourself breastfed. And so one of the questions that I just got on Instagram actually, and so I'm curious if you have another sort of like thing that you can talk about with us. What is something that you do that goes against the data that you study? Like, what's your emotional thing? And like, we just heard from you that that breastfeeding like was the thing. Is there another thing, or Do you wanna tell us more about the breastfeeding piece of it?
I mean, let me say more. Let me say a little more about the breastfeeding piece because I think this was a really big thing for me because it was really, really, really important to me to breastfeed my daughter, and it was really, really hard. And
Why? Like, where did that strong feeling come
I
from?
have it's very hard to so I think some of it was even though I knew the data, and maybe this is part of what you're getting at, like, I sort of had this sense of, like, this is what's like, doing this is gonna make me a good parent, even though I knew that's not true, and from a perspective of 15 years, I'm like, "I should have given myself a break." But there is so much of this external pressure, and it just felt like, well, I should be able to achieve this. I'm
Mhm.
good at things. I should be able to be good at this too, and I was not good at it, and she was not good at it. No offense, she's a great kid, but it was not her thing. I worked very hard to make that sort of work, and I did it because and I worked far harder than was probably necessary because of this, like, I don't know, internal emotional feeling.
Right.
But I will say, interestingly, when I look back on that, I wish that I had given myself more of a break. Like, I wish that I had listened to the data a little bit more, and I just absolutely could not in the moment. But those, walking up and down the hallway of the hotel with a baby that wouldn't latch, that screamed and screamed and screamed and screamed and screamed, like, I wish that I had given her formula.
Yeah, I hear you on that. It leads me to my next question because certain corners of the internet say that unless you have a physical ailment that prevents you from breastfeeding, you are a terrible mother if you choose not to. But what about mental health? If breastfeeding is destroying you mentally, is that not equal to a physical reason to stop? Because the data that you have given us says that what children need for long-term success is secure attachment, responsiveness, a mother who is pregnant, and you cannot give that from a place of depletion.
I
So, like, breast is best, right?
Yeah, I
Right?
mean, I right? Yeah, I
Right.
think this is so much what I hear from people and the conversation I would like people to have. When we say breast is best, if you dig into the data there and you say, like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, there's a small reduction in gastrointestinal illness in the first year and maybe a bit of a reduction in eczema. So it's like a best in a kind of, there are some small benefits, but those small benefits need to be weighed against other things, which could be physical ailments, but could also be this isn't working for me. This isn't working for my family. This isn't allowing me to show up as the best mom. Because, as you say, like showing up in a responsive and attached and happy way is part of being a good parent that is also good for your kid. And so
Yeah.
there's kind of two pieces here. One is that you're saying it in a way I think is a reasonable frame, which is like, even from the standpoint of my kid, it would be better for me to use formula because that's how I'm going to show up in the best way that I am as a mom. I think that's a really good argument. I think another really good argument is this is what works for me and my family. Thank you. And it doesn't have to be because that's the thing that's going to make my baby a superhero and I've weighed all of these things. It could be because it is what works for you and your
Yeah.
mental health and your physical health and the things that you want. And that is actually a totally great reason to make choices. And sometimes in parenting, we sort of give people the impression that that's not an okay way to make choices, that it's never okay to say you're doing something because it's the thing that works for you.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm learning as we kind of learn how to parent that you try to make the choices that are best for your kid, and sometimes those choices aren't best for every other person like in your family unit, and so you have to make adjustments,
Tough.
right? So that
Yeah.
everybody is okay. And I think that that's something that is not talked about a lot. What's so interesting to me about the breast is best thing is that that campaign didn't actually start as a way to shame mothers.
No.
It started as pushback against formula companies that were aggressively marketing their product and manipulating women. It was
Totally.
supposed to protect mothers from being
Yes.
exploited. And now the campaign that was started by trying to give women power ends up being the thing that is like punishing them, right? You see all of these videos of women confessing that they have to formula feed their baby, and then the comments are like, "Well, breast is best, breast is best, breast is best." And like, what like who benefits from keeping mothers afraid? Because it doesn't feel
I
accidental to me.
Yeah, I don't know. So the historical context here is actually quite interesting. So, in the
Please tell
early
us.
19 so
Please.
breastfeeding was historically the thing that people did, and kind of beginning in the period when we then had formula. There's a kind of a period in kind of the 1950s where this sort of is like, oh, formula is for rich people. When my mom was born in like the late 1940s, my grandmother was told like only poor people breastfeed. Like breastfeeding, like
Whoa,
formula
formula
is
was
the
for rich
modern.
people?
Yeah, yeah, so formulas for rich
Okay.
people, and then there's a sort of decline in the breastfeeding rate. It reaches its nadir at about, like, 20% of women in the US starting breastfeeding in, like, the early 1970s. Then there is a bunch of pushback against formula marketing, actually a lot of, like, very dangerous formula marketing in the developing world where there was not clean water. There's a bunch of pushback against Nestle. At the same time, there's this kind of, like, more crunchy mom movement that begins, and breastfeeding rates increase. They increase initially among sort of higher education women, and then kind of everybody catches up. And that's just kind of gone up over time. So right now, the breastfeeding initiation rate is almost as high as it's ever been in the,
Mhm.
the US. And along with those changes, the rhetoric around the benefits of breastfeeding has gone up and up and up and up over time. So there was
Yeah.
this sort of early period where it was like breastfeeding, it's some people you could do it. It's an interesting choice to try. And then we
Yeah.
started adding these benefits and adding these benefits, it's going to do this, 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 many of which are not supported by data. And we've arrived at this point where I agree people are kind of finding themselves feeling like just absolute shame for not exclusively breastfeeding in a way that's I don't think is the intention, as you say, of this initial campaign.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's the what it was. I don't think it's doing what they set
People
out to
think it should. Yeah,
accomplish with
that's
it. I felt so guilty when I decided to wean, and it's I even felt like I like physically couldn't do it for much longer, for maybe even 10 days before I like finally
Mhm.
allowed it to come out of my mouth to my husband and be like, "I literally just cannot do this anymore. I am too exhausted." The triple feeding, it just is so hard. And at the time, I had retained placenta. I was like bleeding nonstop. I had to do misoprostol twice, had to have surgery, like all this stuff that made my postpartum super complicated. And I still feel guilty about it.
Yeah,
Like we
it's
have fully
crazy.
transitioned to formula, and it, honestly, we probably would have ended up on formula anyway because my daughter has CMPA, which is cow's milk protein
Okay. Yeah.
allergen.
Yeah.
So she has to be on super special formula to be
Expensive.
okay. Extremely expensive formula. But yeah, like I continue to feel a lot of emotions about it because I'm somebody that like is really fascinated by how the human body works, and I really hoped for myself that I could do it, and I just couldn't do it, and I feel even to this day kind of like a failure.
Yeah. No, I totally hear that. I mean, you shouldn't feel that way, but I think that you are not alone. One thing I will tell you, and most of the audience I speak to is people with little kids, with like babies and pregnant. But my own kids are 11 and 15, and I will tell you, like, this too will pass. Like, there are many other things.
Okay, thank you.
Like when
There are
you,
many
it,
other
it
bigger
is
things waiting for me.
yeah, there are other things waiting, other good things and other complicated things. But one of the things that is so hard about the first year, and especially the first year of your first kid, is that everything seems incredibly important. And
Oh
like,
yeah.
this is like everything I do is an opportunity to screw up or not screw up or like set them up for whatever. And I think from the perspective of later, I will tell you like these are not all opportunities to screw up or not screw up. Like it's fine. And you get good opportunities to screw up later that you'll want to think carefully about. But the first year is very overwhelming. It's very overwhelming.
Yeah, I think so too. You cover a lot of topics in your book. What is one of the what is one of your favorite things that you cover in any of your books? Because I have not read your newest book yet, but I read both Expecting Better and Crib Sheet, and I loved them. You were the woman who told me what like actually happens during childbirth and after childbirth, and I was like, oh my god, oh my god. Anyway,
Yeah.
what's one of your favorite topics that you cover? I'm very curious.
Okay, so I will tell you two. One is my favorite chapter of the entire of any of my books is the chapter about childbirth recovery in Crib Sheet, which is
Mm,
like here is
exactly
like
what I'm talking about.
it's called Take the Mesh Underwear, and it is about, what happens. And I remember sending that chapter to my best friend, who is, has kids a similar age to mine, and was like, I think you need a disclaimer at the top that, like, people probably shouldn't read this. It was like, "This is it's too true." But I think
No,
it is we don't talk about it.
I devoured
We
that
don't
part of
talk
the
about
book.
it. We don't talk about it, and we should. The other thing is I love writing about, nutrition and kids. I think it's, like, sort of there's so much, tension and confusion around like food and solid food and how you're going to organize your kids diet, and I think it's really a place where there is an opportunity for people to think about how they want their family sort of food structure to run. And I'm always very interested in places where there are many good options, but you kind of have to figure out what works for your family. And there's a lot of interesting data around, how do you encourage kids to eat vegetables, and like interesting studies about dip. And I'm always excited about dip
What
and
do you mean
studies.
dip? Like hummus?
So yeah,
Hummus
like
dip?
hummus. Yes. So there's studies where they have kids where they're trying to get kids to like vegetables more, and it turns out that
Oh,
a good way to encourage kids to like vegetables, this is like, bigger than your kids, but like older kids who are more picky, is to serve them vegetables with dip. And they have these studies where they're giving them, but it's not just hummus, it's like strawberry cream cheese. like we
oh.
serve the peppers with strawberry cream cheese, and you're like, ah. But that turns out to be a thing that makes kids, they associate the vegetable more positively, and then they liked it better.
Interesting. Because in my this postpartum period I'm in, I've been like, I need to eat more vegetables. And I went out and I bought myself dip to encourge myself
It
to eat
works
more
for
vegetables.
adults.
So I am just it works for adults too. That can
Yeah.
that can be a data point for you. Is that it also yeah, works for adults. Honestly, before Nell was born, I did not know what made a good car seat versus just a fine one. I'd never thought about it before for more than 30 seconds. I know, like first time parent here, clearly. But now I think about it constantly because she's in it constantly. And we got the Nuna Pippa Urban. I'm obsessed with this car seat because it goes from our car to the ride share to grandma's car so easily. It's baseless and it is incredible. But the thing that really sold me on Nuna is the thing that nobody talks about a lot. And that is the fact that their entire car seat line is made with FR free materials, no added fire retardant chemicals, which are exactly the kind of chemicals that get flagged in all kinds of studies and then quietly never get cleaned up. But as somebody who runs a women's health company, and that means I read tons of ingredient labels for fun, by the way. That really mattered to me before I even looked at the price tag. Beyond that, the gear is just smart. It's the kind of design that makes you go, okay, somebody who's actually been in a postpartum body and has like had to deal with a stroller actually built this. It's lighter than it should be. It folds the way your brain wants it to fold. It doesn't require a tutorial. We have the Swiv, by the way. The Swiv and the Pippa Urban go together. They work together. So if you're in that new mom phase where everything feels like one more thing to figure out, anything that makes life easier is worth it. I would definitely recommend checking out nunababy.com or popping into your local Nordstrom to test it out. So here's where I'm at right now from a beauty perspective. I am 4.5 months postpartum. I am back at work. I'm hosting a podcast, and the version of me that did a full 10-step makeup routine before going to brunch is is gone. She is not coming back. She has moved on. Now, if a routine takes longer than 5 minutes, it's not happening, which is exactly why Merit Beauty works for me. I can have the baby monitor on in the bathroom, watching Nell in her crib, watching her try to go down for a nap, and put my makeup on at the same time, knowing that it's only going to take me 5 minutes. It's a minimalist beauty brand that makes elevated makeup and skincare designed to help you look put together really in just minutes, not an hour, minutes with your fingers. And again, like I said, while the baby monitor is going off, the Flush Balm is the one I use every single day. One was sold every 30 seconds in 2024, which tells you a lot. I also love the Minimalist. It's double duty foundation and concealer. And then on a no makeup day, the Great Skin Serum is amazing. Instant hydration, instant plump. The best part, Merit's products are clean, vegan, cruelty free, and made with nourishing skincare ingredients. And right now, Merit Beauty is offering our listeners their signature makeup bag. It is so cute. You've seen it all over the internet. And you get that with your first order at meritbeauty.com. That's MERIT beauty.com to get your free signature makeup bag with your first order. Meritbeauty.com. I'm curious, your two kids, because I think sleep training is like one of the other topics
Oh
that people
yeah,
are like, Emily Oster. They like love it or
love sleep
hate it.
training. Mm,
Did you sleep train your kids?
yeah, totally. I did
Yeah.
sleep train my kids. I feel very strongly that sleep training should be in people's toolbox. It's not the
Mm.
tool everybody's going to pull out, doesn't align with everybody's preferences for their family. But these claims like sleep training ruins your kid's attachment, sleep training, ruins your kid will never love you or be a successful adult or whatever they're saying, these are not supported by data. When you look at the data on attachment measures and other outcomes for kids who are sleep trained and not, you just don't see any evidence of that. For a lot of kids and families, sleep training really improves their experience of
Hmm.
sleeping. And that is good for kids and good for parents. And it's a bit like breastfeeding, actually. Like, today on Instagram, somebody said, I have a 20-month-old and they're up many times every night. And I haven't, slept in whatever, 2 years. And I think I might die. Like, can I
Oh my
die from lack of sleep? The answer
I
is
think
like,
you can.
no, you can,
No,
but you
you can.
won't. Yes, you can die from lack of sleep, but your body's not
I
going
was
to let you die from lack of sleep in this setting.
Sleep deprivation is one of the tools that they use to torture
It's
you. If you're
it's
like
a
being
form of torture.
held,
Yeah,
it is sleep deprivation is a form of
it's a form of
torture.
torture.
Yeah,
And
at
I
20
think
months
for
old.
for someone like that, I would say like I think if you gotten to the point where you're saying I feel like I might die, you should consider pulling the sleep training tool out of the toolbox because this might really improve your experience of being a parent and the way you can show up for your kid, and it is not bad for your child. So I guess that's but yeah, people get so mad about sleep training. Oh my God. So
Do you
mad.
think that do you think that people resist sleep training because when you hear your baby cry, it's just so primal to go to them?
I think it is difficult. Yes, I think what it makes sleep training hard is that it is hard to hear your baby cry. And like
Really
with
hard.
many, times where your child will be uncomfortable and it will be difficult for them, it is difficult to do that. And I think that sleep training tends to work better if people are more comfortable with that, if they are more confident that this is the right choice for them. That's actually true in the data. So I think there's a piece of that. I think some of the pushback on the internet is actually a bit more venal than that. I think that there are people who would like to sell you their sleep course,
Mhm.
and they don't like sleep training because they want you to buy their sleep course. So,
When I, posted that breastfeeding video a few months ago, it was stitched by a lactation consultant who basically
mm.
was, like, talking shit at me, but then also was like, "And buy my lactation consultant courses," and I just was like, the irony. The lactation consultants that are supposed to be your biggest support system in this most precious of times are the ones that are like snarking you on the internet. It, people send me that video.
Look, Lo, I am an economist. Capitalism is a good organizational structure for understanding most things about the world.
Yeah, that is true. Something that I kind of want to like get back into as it relates to capitalism at all. Like babies need a lot. I'm not arguing that. Somewhere in between what babies need and what we tell mothers that they must provide, like something has gone wrong. When you look at history, industrialization, the rise of the nuclear family, suburbanization, everyone in separate houses, the model of like one woman alone, solely responsible for a newborn around the clock, is a pretty recent invention. It is not ancient wisdom. It's an accident, in my opinion, of modern infrastructure. And somehow we took that accident and turned it into a moral standard and told every mom that if she cannot do it, she is a bad mom. Please give me your thoughts.
That is a great point. There is a lot of sort of interesting research about the decline in sort of social, like, we used to have, even in the period of more modern times, we used to have more sort of social environment. So people are much less religious than they were.
Yeah.
Religious groups were a source of like cross generational support, right? Because we're sort of talking about like what's missing is like your parents and your grandparents and a whole,
Multi-generational family homes,
and we
like
don't have
living in
that.
the village.
And we don't have that anymore, and so people feel very isolated, and it is like a tremendous amount of work to be with a baby, and then you will hear these things. People are like, "Well, if you can't do it, like, why did you have a kid?" If you're not gonna, like, and that's very, frustrating, and
My
I'm not
number one most hated comment is like, "So then why did you have a kid?"
I mind if I have a kid. It's like, "Well, I wanted
Why
to, I
have
just right now I'm extremely tired."
Yeah.
I think we need, like, we all need help, and our friends can be helpful, our parents can be helpful, but the built infrastructure around that is not here, and it means, for a lot of us, we're hiring help, which is also great and can be an amazing part of our family, but is a different it's just really different.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, do you have any ideas on how to solve the crisis? Because to me, as I live it, it feels like a crisis to me
So what do
because
you
and
yeah.
it's probably because I'm still in this very fresh postpartum period where I'm very emotional and like the baby needs a lot. And we have a nanny. We're lucky enough to have help because my husband works and I work. And so we need help. But I guess maybe this is me just having a lot of feelings as I kind of like project out the next even 10, 20, 50 years and think about like the growth of the internet and just getting further away from like the humanness of this all, right? Like our actual village, our actual community, and it really makes me feel so sad. And I think I'm actively trying to figure out for my family how to push back against that, right? Like, how do we create our village? How do we create our community? And like, I don't really have all the answers except for like, well, we're going to have to leave New York City one day and move to the suburbs and basically turn off all of our screens for the rest of forever and get a landline.
Get a landline. I I mean, I do think there is more space for friend networks and friend networks that you build around your kids.
Mhm.
And that's very hard to do when they're very small. But as I feel like one of the sort of saving graces of being a parent of older kids is the development of those relationships. So for example, there was a week that our kids were all unexpectedly off from school because something happened before Christmas, and it was like I have an 11-year-old. They can't just sit around my house all day. I have a job,
Right.
and there's a group chat with the moms in the class, and we just split days, and every day a different parent took all the kids at their house. And was just like, 11-year-olds, you don't need to supervise. You just like leave them in the basement and hope nobody dies. But
Okay.
I
Good to know.
I I do feel like when you have a baby, it is isolating in a way that gets better as kids get to school age and as there's a sort of a new set of people who are having the same exact experience that you are and where you're connected in this specific way around your kids. Where I would love that to extend down is to this early postpartum experience where it's like where is the other person who knows exactly what I'm going through, who I feel that shared kinship with, and where maybe we could all help each other.
Okay, so it gets better, is what you're saying.
I have a real question. How does your household actually keep track of everything? Because between Love Wellness, this podcast, the brand work that I do, my husband, my baby, my brain is at full capacity all the time. Sticky notes don't cut it. The group text doesn't cut it. The shared Google Calendar I've used for 10 years does not actually solve the problem. It literally just gave me a different surface to ignore, which is why Skylight Calendar has been such a game changer. It's an all in one digital smart calendar that syncs seamlessly with Google Calendar, Apple Calendar, Outlook, and more. And it gives you customizable views for daily, weekly, or monthly planning. It lives on the wall in our kitchen. The entire household can see what's happening at a glance, and I do not have to be the air traffic controller of everyone's lives, right? You talk about women doing invisible work, cognitive work. The Skylight Calendar helps with that so much. My favorite feature is tasks. It helps kids build healthy routines and independence. So, brushing teeth, homework, chores, they become fun and rewarding. Nell's obviously still too little for that part, but I am already setting up the bones of a system that we can grow into. And the part that sealed it, your happiness is Skylight's happiness. So, if in 4 months you're not 100% thrilled with your purchase, you can return it for a full refund, no questions asked. Families are better when they're working together. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to myskylight.com/goodmom. Go to myskylight.com/goodmom for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That's myskylight.com/goodmom.
So I can't help but notice that you do sometimes get a lot of venom online from
Hmm.
people who disagree with you. And
Hmm.
like, fine, we already kind of touched on that. You have been called controversial, dangerous, but honestly, like from where I am sitting, you gave an entire generation of mothers permission to stop punishing themselves. So I want to ask you, how does it feel to be a revolutionary?
I feel very lucky to get to do this, I will say. That is, I am not this is not what I was trained. This is not what I like planned to do when I was getting a PhD. I was not like, "Oh, and I'm hoping to influence people by telling them on Instagram that everything is okay." But it feels like so lucky to have found myself here, and it is true people yell at me all the time on the internet, but then sometimes people will find me in person or online and be like, "Wow, you really helped me, and you helped me get through a hard time, or you helped me relax and enjoy my kids more." And, like, it's like that feels to me like such a gift to get to be able
Hmm.
to make this experience better for anybody.
Yeah.
I guess
You
not the
you
people who hate me, but other people. It's like
Everyone cool has some haters,
every
okay?
Yeah, totally. It's like, as Taylor Swift says, haters
It
gotta
it
hate.
is
It's fine. It's
it
fine.
is it is what it is. Yeah, in for me, I'm somebody that historically has lived with a lot of anxiety. So I assumed that I would be a very anxious pregnant person. Because I'm somebody that how do you say that? Catastrophizes
Catastrophizes. Yeah.
catastrophizes a lot. When I was little, my mom would leave the house and I would be convinced that like she was gonna
Mm.
get in an accident every single time. So I was like, how the fuck am I supposed to be like pregnant, have a kid, and not just worry constantly? And reading your books really helped me chill out
Thank you.
the whole
That's
time,
amazing.
remarkably so. And so I have to give you like personal thanks for that because I am somebody that like believes in data and like believes in the validity of data and that you don't always have to make a decision based on data, but having the information is helpful. And I think like for anybody listening, like that's how you should think about data, right? Is that like data
Absolutely.
is the data point.
And then you can use it to make your decisions. And
Correct.
that's
Yes.
well,
Can you
thank you.
tell us about your most recent book, The Unexpected?
Yeah, so the unexpected is about pregnancy after complications. So about 50% of pregnancies in the US either end in or involve one of the complications we talk about. So miscarriage, preeclampsia, gestational diabetes. And
Oh my
this book is really a response to the questions that I got from readers of Expecting Better who said, okay, I had this complication, will it happen again? How worried should I be? And it's co-written with a maternal fetal medicine specialist, and we really try to go through the risks of recurrence, what kind of treatments there are, in the hopes that people who have gone through these experiences will feel more empowered if they are deciding to try again, to have another kid, to have another pregnancy.
Well, this episode couldn't be better timed then because I'm going to go to the bookstore and buy that book after this episode
Yeah.
because I am right now, it seems like the poster girl for challenging end of pregnancy and postpartum. I developed insulin supported gestational diabetes and then gestational hypertension that like spiked into preeclampsia a little bit here and there, which caused me to, need to deliver early. And then I had retained placenta. And I'm just sitting here being like, should I even think about having another child? Am I gonna die? Like,
This book is
my
for you.
my mind goes there. So this book is for
Book is
me.
for
I'm
you.
so excited to have another Emily Oster read.
I'm sorry. I feel like it's a book where I wish people would not have to read it, but I'm glad that it
It's
exists. It's you.
okay. Like, in my opinion, women can handle the truth. We want information. We are seeking out information. And that's a big reason why this show exists because, again, women can handle the truth. Like, it's up to us to make decisions after we are given good information. So, Emily Oster, tell everybody where our listeners can find you, please.
So you can find me. I have a website called parentdata.org, which has newsletters, and you can search for more in-depth things from all of the books. And you can find me on Instagram at Prof. Emily Oster.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Everyone listening
Thank you.
today, please subscribe, follow wherever you are listening or watching. And as we get the show off the ground, I would love it if you gave a rating, a review. It really helps new podcasts find an audience. And please send this episode to your group chat. I know that everyone in the group chat will love to hear the Emily Oster episode of Tell Me I'm a Good Mom. Hope everyone has a good day. And Emily, you're a good mom.
You're a good mom, too. Thanks for having me.
You're a good mom.